What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So it's finally time to continue going back to the movie theaters to see more MCU installments on the big screen. We had Black Widow in July, and now we are here with Shang-Chi, the first ever film for the character of Shang-Chi. And I've said it before with other MCU installments and kind of some of the ones I've done in retrospect that over the course of the MCU, it's been amazing to see things that I never thought I would ever see on the big screen or just on the screen in general from certain comic book characters, certain comic book stories that honestly just felt like they were going to be things that lived within the geek culture of people who keep up with comic books. And Shang-Chi is one of those characters and one of those worlds. I remember reading the Shang-Chi comic books as a kid and just always being a fan of the character as one of those background MCU characters or Marvel characters that people were not incredibly familiar with. And Marvel has been doing a great job introducing those characters from the comics into the big screen and making them these household names. They've done it with the Guardians of the Galaxy, and I really do believe over the course of time, Shang-Chi will become the same thing. And I very much look forward to how this movie kind of impacts the rest of the MCU moving forward and what we're going to see in the future with this character. So what I will say right out of the gate, if you can't already tell from my excitement, is that I really enjoyed this film. I found it to be a great time, and as a longtime Shang-Chi fan and just a longtime Marvel fan, MCU fan, this was just a good fun time at the movie theaters. My fiance, my buddy Robbie, the Big Rob Theory, and myself were sitting there just scarfing down some beer and some pretzel bites, and yeah, this was just a good time at the movie theaters. And so overall, what I'll say is I'm mainly positive on this film. I found it to be a good time. It's got a great blend of that MCU action that you're very familiar with, as well as you know, the traditional martial arts action that we all know and love. And I really loved being able to see that blend and being able to just have an MCU film now that definitely has a huge stamp in the martial arts film kind of area. And yeah, in a lot of parts, though this movie does have its martial arts thing, there is definitely that MCU, I guess the MCU isms is what I can say. There is that MCU feel and vibe to the big over-the-top action sequences, but I do think they did a really good job of blending the two types of movies, making for really cool visual action sequences and just big set pieces that are very unique in the MCU, though they very much feel like something you can expect from the MCU. Overall, like I said, I enjoyed the film. However, I do have some gripes, and we're going to get into that in just one second. But for anybody who's not familiar with the character of Shang-Chi and what this movie is all about, I won't be jumping into spoilers. The movie did just come out, and I know majority of you are incredibly excited to see this movie because this is without a doubt the first big new MCU thing that we're getting in this phase outside of Black Widow that is completely and utterly new or feels very new and feels very fresh. But like a lot of the other MCU stuff, you know, you have those things that you can come to expect from the MCU. Big CG over-the-top action sequences. There's that humor in there with a, you know, story that has to relate to family in some way, shape, or form. And ultimately, there's all the little cameos, Easter eggs, and setups for future MCU installments, as we've all come to expect with any MCU installment at this point. Just so you guys know, this movie does have 2 post-credit scenes, so definitely stick around for both of those after they're over. But yeah, really quickly jumping into my thoughts on Shang-Chi and what this movie is all about. We focus on a character named Shan, who obviously is Shang-Chi. And yeah, he's a character who has a bit of a checkered history with his father and his family altogether. He escaped his family, kind of just ran off on his own, and has kind of been living his normal life in America. And eventually his family and everything that went down with his father starts to catch up with him once again, and now he's been pulled into this new adventure once again with his father, his sister, and they start diving into the past and start dealing with things that happened to their mother and just overall a lot of family history. So in a lot of ways, there is you know, that element that you kind of come to know and love when it comes to MCU stuff, that, you know, they usually have some sort of family drama in their storytelling. And so yeah, this movie definitely has a lot of that going on, but that's the basic gist, and I won't tell you much more outside of that. If you've seen the trailers, you can definitely see where there's more, but for the most part, this is a father versus son story. And yeah, again, the trailers very much have been marketing that, and I think for the most part they do a good job with that. However, I do have some criticisms about the middle of the film. Before we even get to that though, I do want to say that the movie opens up up strong. And what I really enjoyed about the film is it doesn't take a lot of time to get right into it. Right out of the gate, we're spending time with our characters, starting to see, how they are, where their humor is kind of landing, and just overall, we get to kind of get a vibe of the overall action of the movie right out of the gate. They don't really hold back on that. And yeah, right out of the gate, we get a good feel of what this movie is going to be and the energy that this film is going to have compared to other films in the MCU. Like I said, there are those similarities that you can expect from other MCU properties that are in this, but for the most part, this one does have a breath of fresh air kind of feel and vibe to the way it looks, feels, and specifically around the action sequences, because they do a great job in this movie of really blending that traditional big over-the-top comic book action that we come to expect from Marvel with the martial arts. I think they do a really, really great job with that throughout the course of the film. And that's really where the strongest elements of this film were definitely present for me while watching. Again, overall, an enjoyable time, but my biggest issue with this film was about midway through the film, where there's doing most of the development of the story. And what this movie did was something that I'm not really a big fan of, that a lot of movies nowadays do, and that was pretty much telling a story over the course of the film that's using a lot of stories of the past or using flashbacks. So as our characters are being developed over the course of the film, we're either being shown small snippets via flashback, or we're having characters talk to other characters about something that they kind of either experienced in the past, or something that they didn't even know that they experienced in the past, or something that was happening in their past that they were unfamiliar with. And so overall, majority of the development when it comes to the characters in this film very much kind of leans on flashbacks and all these stories being told. And so the middle portion of the film for me definitely felt like a big lull. I found my eyes getting a little bit heavy, and I just found myself a little bit bored, and I kept thinking to myself, man, I didn't really expect to feel this kind of slow in the middle portion of the film. That's not to say it's bad, that's not to even say that it's full on boring, just that it's definitely a lot slower, and I did find myself kind of thinking about the fact that this was a little slower, and I was a tad bit bored at small moments. Overall, I did enjoy the performances though. I thought the cast was great. I thought everybody brought something fresh and cool to the cast and to the movie overall. The movie was light, it was fun, but it also had its heavy moments when it needed to, and ultimately, I think where this movie really suffered for me was in its overall development of its characters and its story. And it's one of those movies that kind of got to the end of the movie and felt like one of those movies where it's like, man, we kind of reached the finale of this movie a lot quicker than I kind of expected to. And I think a lot of that really had to do not necessarily with the runtime of the film, but really what we were doing with the runtime of the film. And I think the way that they chose to tell the story, as I mentioned before, using the flashbacks and the stories of the past to develop these characters, I feel it took away from the ability for the movie to really develop these characters, with these characters actually going through things and learning things on their own without actually being told these things or reminiscing on some sort of past memory. There were a lot of really great opportunities to tell a great family drama in this movie, and I just think that this is also one of those movies that spends way too much time where our hero and our main villain are apart, so they really aren't able to build that tension and animosity against one another that really kind of lends to the full stakes and tension that we would end up having in the final battle of the film. The final battle of this film is insane. It's almost Avengers level huge, and if you've seen the trailers, you can tell that there's going to be a big over-the-top CG battle with a lot of elements going on, but the trailers definitely hold back on how insane that it gets, which is a great thing for sure, without a doubt. But while watching it, I thought to myself, like, the stakes are just kind of not there for me, because while I'm watching it, a lot of stuff in the final portion of the film, especially since the middle portion felt really slow and kind of underdeveloped in the way they chose to tell the story, there were things about the final act of the film for me that just kind of removed the overall stakes. I didn't really ever feel worried for the characters. I knew they were going to be fine. I knew everything was going to be fine. It felt very predictable in a lot of ways, and I felt like the overall fight between Shang-Chi and his father in this film, though really cool without a doubt when it comes to the special effects and the costume design, the set design, the CG, whatever the case may be, and the overall choreography, all of that was fantastic, and the performances throughout were awesome. So in no way, shape, or form am I saying it's bad in any way, shape, or form, but I just simply felt like there wasn't necessarily a full sense of stakes, and I kind of felt like there was a predictability and a convenience to the way characters were able to get in and out of situations with no harm. So I think overall for me, I wasn't very worried about the characters and their journey. I never really felt like they were going to be in mortal danger at any point in the film, but I still did enjoy the film. I still really enjoyed the action, and I think this film had a lot more potential to be something a lot better. However, I still really thoroughly enjoyed it, and I do highly recommend it. I think if you're a longtime Marvel fan, a longtime MCU fan, and just somebody who wants to go maybe see something different in the comic book movie genre, I think this is definitely something that's going to give you that different thing in the comic book movie genre. genre, and I very much look forward to seeing how this character and the characters that are involved in this and the story that played out here affects the future MCU installments that start to come out. We know there's crazy things coming in the future, both in streaming with Disney Plus, as well as on the big screen with things like Spider-Man No Way Home coming out later this year, as well as Eternals, and now this. And it's, you know, we're definitely ramping up for phase 4 of the MCU to be something incredibly unique and different in the MCU, and something that's very much going to just turn into something very, very crazy and big and over the top. Kevin Feige has come out multiple times saying that the next Avengers film will not be out for quite some time, and I just cannot wait for whenever that time does come. I'm going to appreciate all these small installments, or not small installments, but I'm going to enjoy all these singular installments as time goes on, as we lead up to that, because whenever we get to the next Avengers film, the lineup and the action and the visuals are going to be insane. So overall, really enjoyed this film, found it to be a great time, and I do recommend it, even though I had my criticisms about certain elements about how the story was told and the middle portion of the film. I also just want to take a quick moment to just kind of praise the creative team and the cast who was part of making this movie. The director is Destin Daniel Cretton, who I'm not really familiar with, but he directed the film Just Mercy with Michael B. Jordan just a couple years back. And so yeah, I love what they did with the direction of this film. Again, I have my criticisms about certain elements in terms of the story and the stakes near the end of the film, but overall I think in terms of a visual, big over the top blockbuster film, yeah, Destin definitely did a really great job. The guy who plays Shang-Chi is Simu Liu, and I believe that's how you pronounce his name, but either way, he was phenomenal in the film. I thought he was really great in the role, and I very much look forward to see what they do with his character moving forward. I think he's going to be a great addition to the Avengers and the rest of the hero lineup. Yeah, just super hyped on him, and I thought he was brilliant in the film. You also have Katie, played by Awkwafina, and Awkwafina is this actress that I would have been more annoyed by before than I am now, because since my early days of being introduced to Awkwafina, I've become a big fan of her through films like The Farewell and Raya and the Last Dragon, and in this film, I enjoyed her. I think this role could have been played by pretty much anybody else. I don't really think she brought anything that was super unique to the role, but I did enjoy her in the film, and I am looking forward to seeing how they play off of her character in the future. And after looking at my notes here, I'm not even going to waste my time just making a fool of myself and completely butchering their names, but I do want to praise the actor and actress who played the father and sister of Shang-Chi in this film. I think they both did a phenomenal job, and I'm really looking forward to seeing if they ever use them in the future in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, guys, that's going to be my thoughts on Shang-Chi and the Legends of the Ten Rings. I meant to make this a shorter review, but it just doesn't work out sometimes with filming YouTube videos, but I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. Are you curious about checking this movie out? If you've already checked it out, did you like it? Did you not like it? Leave any and all those comments down below in the comment section. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Please do hit that like button. It helps the channel out. Please comment, because it also helps the channel out, and hit that subscribe button for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.